Great.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to step away, and if you need me, you know how to reach me by phone or otherwise.
Fantastic. Thanks, Margaret. And we'll endeavor to be off by about 10 to 2, just so that you have time to check in with the new folks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Enjoy your session. And Kara, way to go. That's brilliant. I'm really, really excited for you.
Thanks, Margaret.
Ciao.
Bye.
It's quiet all of a sudden.
Too quiet.
Yeah.
Yep. No, we'll just wait 1 more minute, and then if Kingston isn't able to join us, that's the beauty of being able to record these sessions, so that they can still take advantage of your presentation and as well hear some comments from Kara.
Good. That sounds like a plan.
All right, folks, we have to, I've been informed by Margaret McKenzie, who's our WebEx coordinator, that we have to be done this by 10 to 2 Eastern time, because there's another team coming on board, so I just want to stick as close to our timings as possible. We'll be recording this session just so that those folks who haven't been able to make it today will be able to take advantage of the recording at some later date. So without further ado, let's start off with Calvin. I think he's going to discuss a little bit about the on-site process that he just had with Halifax, and then perhaps Kara can share a few of her experiences as well, having just been through the process. Over to you, Calvin.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Kara, for being willing to be a part of the conversation today. I think it's probably the best. I know some of you're coming up for your pre-sites here fairly quickly and moving into the on-sites within the next short time here. So Kara has just completed her on-site portion here this week. And so I don't want to take her thunder from her, but I thought maybe we'd start with maybe Kara sharing a little bit. Kara, how would you like to do it? Do you want to do a question and answer, or do you just want to share your experience part of it?
I'm okay with either. I mean, I guess I can try to summarize a little bit of what that was for us, and then if people have questions, that would work fine.
Okay, sounds good. And it's probably beneficial if you maybe look at the pre-site component of it. What was your experience, that time between the pre-site and the on-site, and what that experience was like? And feel free, Kara. I know there was some communication issues as we transferred things over to Deirdre, but feel free to share that experience, and then maybe talking a little bit about what the on-site experience was like for you. And then have a question and answer afterwards would be probably a good valuable opportunity for the other centers.
Sure.
So I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Lisa's here with me as well, so I may get her to add her feedback as well about the process because the two of us work closely together on this. And the other question I'm just going to send to both you, Calvin, and Jonathan that we are actually wondering today that would be helpful in terms of timing so that we don't lose things fresh in our mind is, are there specific questions from Military Family Services and specific questions from CAC about our experience, about, you know, that kind of feedback, because we will do, we want to do and, you know, evaluate that at our center, I guess, how that worked for different people that were involved, the pros, the cons, the challenges, what worked well, and all of that, and do that in the next couple of weeks so that things are fresh and it's not a distant memory for us. And so in order to capture the information for both of those entities, it would be helpful to have some guiding questions and particular feedback that you're looking for. I know, Calvin, you spoke of, you know, in the summertime, possibly all the centers coming together, and I'm sure, Jonathan, there must be plans for Military Family Services as a pilot to ask certain questions and that type of thing. So it would be helpful for us at this stage to be able to have them so that we can capture those so that we're not trying to remember things, but they're still fresh. Is that fair?
That is fair from our perspective. I've been talking to Jonathan. I think we've identified July 12th. As the date where we will have that debriefing session so that we can capture that, and then I'd like to put a report together that could summarize the experience of everybody so that going forward we have that data there that we can identify and know where we need to strengthen and what was successful in the process.
Jenny, are you okay with that? Can you hear us? Oh, good. You're tuned out. Perfect.
Okay, and Kara, this is Jonathan here.
Yes.
I can send you some guiding questions in the next few days, just so that you have, like you said, while it's fresh, and you can write down some ideas.
Right.
And I think that's a great idea, just to have a template, so that you guys will be able to scope your how it went, what worked well, what didn't work so well, what to change for next time.
Great, that sounds good.
Good.
So I guess a summary of our time, I think what we've talked about in the last couple of days in terms of connecting it to our the site visit to the pre-site is that the work that we did up front and sent away in boxes and felt like a piece of our life went in those boxes paid off when it came to the site visit. So because we spent the time at that end, sent as much material as possible, and did a lot of the work and demonstrated the work at that time, I think that our site visit went that led to things going smoothly here. So that was one piece that I think we definitely looked back and realized the importance of that piece, and we were glad that we sent as much as we did and showed the evidence from the very beginning. That was important, so that when it came to the site visit, there were a few partials that we had, and we were able to address those because we had spent so much up front. There definitely were a few hiccups, Calvin, as you said, just in terms of who our reviewers were going to be, who was at the pre-site, who was coming. There was a few of those hiccups, and one of our poor reviewers was quite ill during it, so there was a few hiccups like that. But Dee was able to, I mean, she's very capable, so she was able to work all of those things through. We were very prepared, so I guess that was the part that we thought we would have to say a lot more than we did. So we did a lot of prep for our interviews and that type of thing. But I guess what we found was the reviewers were interested in knowing that these things existed, looked at the pieces, but there wasn't as much analysis. We didn't know exactly what that would look like, how much time they would spend with what we were giving them, if that makes sense. They were very willing to hear about the intricacies of our center, our program, so how that related to the standards. So if you were looking at the standards now and perhaps struggling to see how they fit, that was appreciated, that there was always an understanding from the phone call from the pre-site to the site visit of what Military Family Resource Center is and how your program and how that fits into the standards. So that was really appreciated. There was the sense, you said that, Calvin, to us all the time, that this was meant to be a learning, so it wasn't punitive. Not that we were expecting it to be punitive, but when you feel that you're measuring up against a standard and you're having to demonstrate something, there is that sense of that you are or you aren't demonstrating it. So I think the feel of being able to demonstrate what we were doing, but the feel that it was a learning process, that was really helpful. Lisa, what would you add? The person served, what did we learn? Yeah, that went well.
It went really well. It was a good experience for the people that we support as well to be a part of the education process.
Yeah, so for a team, from a team perspective, yeah, to have our person served those interviews, that was very empowering for them to be able to share their story, I guess, and to be able their experiences with us. So that that was really good. Our board has been very supportive of this process. I think we only needed 3 or 4 board members for the interview. We had 7 show up because of their passion to want to come and to share, and so they came from their workplaces to be able to be here and to take part in the interview. So that was a really positive experience for us. Yeah, the reviewers were very personable. Wanted to learn about what our center was about. Yeah, it went fairly smoothly. And, they did the file checklist and those types of things. I mean, you give us the tools, so it's quite clear what you're expecting of us. So there wasn't any surprises when they opened up our files to look at what was, because you had given us the checklist. We knew what had to be in there. So those tools are useful. Any questions, I guess, that might?
I just have a quick question, Kara, if I can.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, everything I know about the on-site visit processes from what I've read and what I've just recently listened to you, I'm just wondering, was it business as usual in your center all the while the on-site was going on in order to fit in, I guess, the various interviews and the reviews, et cetera? So did your programs continue running as they would normally?
Yes, for the most part. Yes. So there was a few of us that our world stopped, without a doubt. But for most staff, they were able to absolutely go about their business, and we were able to, with the scheduling, I guess that's another, so Calvin had sent us a sample schedule, and then we could work with that. So you have the ability to work with that schedule. So if you're we had to change one program because of room booking, just to have space for interviews, for instance, but you would be able to accommodate that within the schedule. So that was always something, when you look at the schedule, we went back and forth on numerous times, as you could change things around. So if you had a program that you didn't want to postpone or something to that effect, or your change or didn't have the capacity, then you could work with the schedule. But for the most part, depending on which program you had chosen to be accredited. So our first team was the one we accredited. So it still was business as usual there, but they were able to accommodate when the interviews would happen. So we planned that out.
Thank you very much. Yep.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? I think this is a good opportunity for centers that are preparing to ask those hard questions, and Kara and Lacey have been very supportive in providing you that feedback.
I guess that part, and I know, Calvin, you might be able to speak to this a little bit more, but we were unsure how much, in terms of, and I think one of the reviewers spoke of that, is that when you're there and you're asking for things, they were taking a look to show evidence of, but they weren't necessarily at that point reading through all of the material and analyzing it and passing a judgment on some of those things. Yes, the file reviews, it's clear, you're asking us what you want there. You are definitely looking for specific things. But in other areas, it was demonstrating that you had that. It wasn't a judgment about what that process was during the site visit. Your pre-site does a lot of that. There's exact things. So I don't know how to explain that, but I guess that was something that I felt afterwards was it was about seeing that you were doing components of it, but there wasn't a judgment on you should be doing it this way or that way. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, Calvin, but that is a helpful piece of information just to, alleviate some people's stress.
When you're dealing in the human service organization, as you've indicated within this pilot project, that each community is unique in itself. Each organization, each center is unique in itself. There will be certain strengths and certain abilities within those centers, certain priorities within those centers that are unique to the particular center. And you're right, Kara, when we look at a submission of the document, that's 70%, 70 to 75% of the work is really putting that framework of evidence together. When we turn up on site, what we're looking for is connecting of the dots, so that you've demonstrated within the pre-site that you've got the frameworks in place, you've got the documents clearly identified and the evidence clearly identified within the documentation. And so when we do those analyses at the pre-site, we're really looking at your policies, we're looking at your roll-up documents that you provide us within the pre-site. Now, when we turn up on site, as we've learned over the years, that a lot of times you could have great policies and great evidence that is demonstrated within documentation, but it's not necessarily reflected in the practice that is being done within the organization. So the on-site part of it is identifying a sample size large enough so that we can be ensured that those dots are connected and that there is that level of implementation from documentation into practice to satisfy the review team that has come out. And so, and you spoke to it earlier, organizations and centers like yourself, Kara, that has invested a tremendous amount of time at the front end, the review team can see that evidence on site and don't necessarily have to go digging for that information because it's apparent, it's evident within the observations of that is made by the team while they're on site, so that they feel confident that what you put forward in your documentation is actually being implemented into practice. The other part of it, Kara, is, and for the rest of the team, is that for organizations that are in the first step of the accreditation cycles, the first time through accreditation, we're looking for organizations to have baselined a lot of the practice within the organization. So we're not expecting that you've got a tremendous amount of historical evidence, but that you've baselined your practices in line with your documentation to give the review team what we call feeling what we identify as established practice. So that's so the team, once they walk off the site, feels that the practice that they observe is established within the organization and is not going to disappear 2 weeks after the on-site has been completed. And I just want to brag a little bit about you, Kara and Lisa. The fact is, I talked to Deirdre this morning, and they were very impressed. You've done an excellent job, first time through accreditation, to demonstrate the high level of evidence necessary to support accreditation standards. And we don't normally see that within an organization first time through, but you have invested a tremendous amount of time and energy, thought through the standards in detail, looked at your evidence and aligned what you currently were doing with standards to support the observations of the team, both in the pre-site meeting as well as the on-site portion of it. And so, congratulations, Kara. You did very well. And so you should be commended. And my expectations is all the centers should do well within the process, because we've, through our conversations and the work that we've done with you already, I've seen a good evidence-based practice already in existence, and so the work in terms of aligning that evidence to our standards the high probability is that all the centers should do fairly well in terms of being able to make that connection. So it was a lot of work, and I saw that. And when I came out to visit you last fall, I could see the tremendous amount of work that you've done for that, and I'm glad that you found it and your board found it a meaningful experience, and that your clients felt that it affirmed them. And you're right, a lot of times when we talk to the clients, they love to brag on the organizations and tell us their stories of how the organization has made a difference in their life. And so those are, as a review team, those are things that we enjoy hearing. How, as an organization, you have made a difference in their lives, and that's what we want to hear as well, too. So thank you, Kara. That was very well put together, and there are glitches. We deal in the human service industry, and unfortunately, Don Langford, who I had anticipated being part of these reviews, had come down with some health issues. He's getting older, and his health is not allowing him to do travel anymore. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to come. But we had some review members that had relationship with the board, with the military, that stepped in, and I'm sorry to hear that one reviewer was not well. But those things happen, and you just have to adjust and move forward with it as well.
Absolutely. The reviewers were very personable, and that was fine. It worked out fine in the end.
Absolutely. It's always stressful, and I'm glad that you're experiencing it, because, you know, at one point our accreditation process was very punitive. And for many years, because we worked very closely with the minister, government agency that used us as kind of like the big stick. But that's not who we were when we were created 40 years ago. We were created to come alongside organizations to support excellence in practice. And so once we moved away from the government in 2004, we began to return to our roots, because we believe that the best way to ensure a consistency within the implementation of practice, excellence in practice, is to build the capacity within the organization and support those quality assurance activities that are that have meaning and value to the organizations. And when we can do that, we know that they are going to be maintained during the intervening years of accreditation cycle, and it's going to be a more meaningful process to the organization at the end of the day. So I'm glad that was your experience during this review process.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Kara, for sharing your experience. I just wanted to let people know we have about 20 minutes left on the call. So just wanted to check in with, check and see if there were any other questions that we had. Maybe Louise-Anne, if you had any questions from Kingston, or Marie-Claude de Valcartier, or perhaps Lisa from Moose Jaw.
Well, if I can ask another question to Kara, because I think it was really interesting to have a review. I was wondering if you can give us some more detail or elaborate on how you got your team prepared for the interview. You said it was a key of success for you, and also to tips about how you reach out to clients. So on those two things.
So the first question, I guess, about preparation, there was a couple of different things that we did. We did end up creating new policies or changing policies during this. So we did have an education strategy to educate the staff about what those were. So we had multiple ways that we did that. So we did that through supervisors having meetings with their teams. And then we also did a weekly email where we would email a new policy or procedure and then have questions and have people respond back. And so we had a bit of a contest to see which team would have the most amount of submissions. and then we would do a draw from those who had submitted their answers for a prize. They were dollar store prizes like chocolates and food and that kind of thing. So we tried also just to build momentum towards accreditation. So different people were involved in different ways with accreditation, but the emails at least gave that sense of building towards the end. So that was one way. Our interviews, because we had the questions for the interviews, we did do interview prep for the program. We did interview prep with the board, and then the senior management interview is the executive director and whoever they would like to have with them, as I understand it. So we did prep those questions, and so we went through each of the questions, made sure we understood what standard it related to, made sure that we that we were prepared to be able to speak to the evidence, and so we did do prep around all of those things. So that was the prep part. In terms of recruiting persons served, our families, we relied on our staff to, we outlined, I guess, some of the criteria that they were looking for people to speak to their experience at the center that they had here, how they felt welcomed, how they felt supported. So we did an introductory email, sent that to our staff, and then asked them to recruit people that they had worked with that would be able to speak to the experience of the program that we were accrediting, as well as the center as a whole. And we were quite successful with that. We also gave the option of doing the interview in person or doing a phone interview. Most all opted for the in-person, but there were a couple of things that changed in people's lives, so we did do some phone interviews, so that's helpful depending on your clients, so you can work with their schedule. We offered 3 different time frames, so one in the evening and then 2 at different daytimes to try to get as many people as possible, those who work during the day or the evening, and offered childcare for those sessions as well. So those were some. Does that help, Marie-Claude?
Yeah, sure, obviously. And would you be willing to share the email that you sent to the staff?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can send, I'll send all of the ones that we kind of, and you'll be able to, they might look different for your center because there might be different policies or that type of thing that you changed or that type of thing, but absolutely we can send that. So we did a plan, I think it was around January, that we did the kind of education plan for the 3 months leading into of how we would educate people on the pieces to get ready. Although only our program staff were interviewed, we did take the approach to educate all our staff, and that it was possible that any of our staff could be interviewed. And then as we got closer to the date, then we were able to let them know that our program staff and that specific program were going to be interviewed. So that was the approach we tried to, so that everybody in the center, because this is not just about accreditation, this is about moving forward with new policies and procedures, so that everybody became familiar with that. So that was helpful to have a center as a whole approach to educating about the material.
Great, and maybe the email about how you lay out the criteria to recruit the clients as well?
Absolutely. Yep, no problem.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
It's good to hear this collaboration.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we're willing at any time, not that how we've done it is the way to do it, but any pieces that people wanted to. I mean, that was helpful when we'd ask Calvin and he'd send us examples of things and we worked through some of those questions. So if that helps the people, then to just let me know.
And I was saying earlier that as each of you centers have taken a slightly different approach to putting your materials together, which there's no one that is more right than the other, as long as it makes sense to you and are able to identify it. And I think that's going to be good when we meet on the 12th of July to look at those approaches. What was meaningful for you in terms of how you gathered your evidence together to submit for the pre-sites, and what was labor intensive, what was easier, and so that we can learn together and provide that information to future organizations and centers that may choose to go through the process.
Okay, are there any questions from Lisa or Louisanne?
Nope, none for me.
Okay.
Jonathan, hello. It's Colleen from Kingston. Louisanne and I are here.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Colleen.
Hello. And we just wanted to say that we're busy putting together all of our materials to send electronically to Calvin on Monday. And Calvin, just to clarify, we send them to you. Is that the correct path to go?
You can send it to me and Deirdre. Deirdre is going to be your main contact in terms of the on-site component, but okay. I'll make sure that by CCing me on it as well, I make sure that she gets a hold of it.
Okay, that's super, because I'm not sure if we have Deirdre's email, so we'll send it to you and you'll send it on to Deirdre? Okay,
that'll be
lovely.
Fine, yeah.
Super, thank you.
Good, good.
Okay, I'm just checking the chat. Okay. No, looks like we don't have any questions. By the way, you can always use the chat for questions in case you know, someone else is talking and a question occurs to you, because that's a good way to keep track of stuff as well. Or if you're having trouble with your audio, or you have a lot of background noise and don't want to turn on your microphone. Okay, so we'll just do a quick. If Calvin, if you're done with your portion, we can do a quick roundtable and just to see if anyone.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So, so maybe heading back to Bob and Brenda. Did you have anything? Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions related to Halifax's success. I did have one point I wanted to share with the folks that are online. On next week, we have our annual gala, and the CDS is the our guest speaker. And one of the things we've sent him to speak on to our donors and sponsors and the chain of command is the whole accreditation process that we and the other bases are going through. So I think that's a good opportunity for us to share, for him to share with a broader audience the value of the process that we're going through, not just in effect for Edmonton, but for others in other locations. So I think that's an interesting thing to know. So just let everybody know that.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and heading over to Halifax with Kara, did you have any last comments to make?
No, we're just happy where we're at right now and wish everyone luck as they go through. I guess the one thing I just wanted to add, I don't know how it's working at every center, but I know here we had a lot, it was a whole staff effort, and in the last couple of weeks, you're going back and forth, you're getting lots of people to help you, and the one thing that we were very happy about was how we came together as a team, and there was so much kindness shared to Lisa and I as we prepared, and it was a great team building. And sometimes you never know when you're working hard and things are going in so many different directions, and as you said, Bob, it's business as usual, so all of our programs are still running. Those things don't get put on hold, and so it was pretty amazing how everybody came together. I think that was one of the most positive things that we felt, is that everybody was on board and supporting us, even if they weren't in doing all of the accreditation pieces with us. They were very supportive, and so that was really great to see, and to see our person served, our families come through the door to be able to share their experiences. Those were really nice outcomes of the whole process.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, thanks so much for that, Kara. And how about Marie-Claude? Est-ce que vous avez des questions?
Maybe for more the finance piece of it.
Okay.
I know the new fiscal year is started, so I've asked my finance person to ask a prolongation letter, I guess.
Sure. Yep.
So I was just want to point it out to you as well. I guess for other centers will be the same request as well.
Absolutely. Yep. No problem. Yep. So just send them my way via email, and then we can. And I'll also be sending out probably some communication about that as well.
Okay. So you want a letter from us asking it?
No, that's fine. What I'm going to do actually is communicate with all of you about the financing, just so that everybody gets the same message.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
Okay with me.
Oh, okay, perfect. Sorry, I was just waiting for a response there. I wasn't sure if you're. Je savais pas si le micro ne fonctionnait pas. Okay, so all right. So moving down to Moose Jaw, Lisa, did you have any last comments to make or questions?
No, none from us at this time.
Okay, great. Well, just to let you all know, I'm available at any time. I know that Calvin is also available at the end of the horn if you wanted to talk over the phone or talk via email. Either works for both of us. So don't hesitate to contact us as you run through these things. And as you can see, there's a lot we can learn, or you can learn from each other as well. So we'll encourage you to speak with other centers about how it went and how they're doing with their organization. Calvin, was there anything that you wanted to do before we wrap up?
No, that was fine. I think this was a very beneficial session. I think, and Kara, thank you so much for being willing to share your experience. Because being collaborative is what I believe our process is about. We don't expect that from each center. Each center is autonomous and can choose what they want to do and what they want to share. But I've always appreciated, Kara, your willingness to share from your own experience and what your own learning to benefit the other centers. And so I appreciate that. And I will send you some questions from the CEC perspective that if you can, and maybe I'll send those questions to each center after the on-site so that there is consistency in the type of questions that we will be looking for. And that'll help us roll up the data necessary to provide some reporting on this process.
Okay. Sorry, Calvin, cut you off.
No,
there.
I'm done. I'm done. I know I left some silence there, so I just wanted to say that I'm done, and thanks for being a part of the process.
Okay, excellent. So we'll still plan for. I believe our next meeting is probably set for the end of May. I'll send around the usual email about that, but just let me know if that doesn't, if that timing no longer works for any of you, and we'll see if we can work out another time.
Okay.
And I'll send around this recording as well, just in case you have any of your staff who you think would benefit from seeing some of these messages, hearing what Kara had to say, or any of the other material that we covered in the last 40 minutes or so. Okay,
thanks,
great.
Jonathan.
Well, thank you all for joining us today, and we'll just sign off so that the other 2 o'clock session can begin on time. But thank you again to Kara for sharing. I know we didn't, it was a little bit of a trial by fire there, but you did wonderfully as usual. So thank you all for sharing your questions, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So